Hello, my name is Kimberly Holcomb, and I will be working on my week 3 stand-up video. I am going to go over my different components in the style sheets and explain why I did what I did. First of all, I set the background image as the component.jpg that was given to us. Also set the font family to Arial and sans serif as a backup. My container I switched to an article. I gave it the box sizing border box property, had the width set to 98 and padding at 1%. The reason I chose the border box property is so that it stays at 98% and does not go above that. And that takes care of what the width would be with the padding. Next, I set the margin to auto to center it, background to white, and the overflow to auto to keep the background behind everything. Then the different sections I set also to the border box property to keep them all at 31%. They each have a padding of 1% and a margin of 1% on all different sides. Each one is floated left so that they're in a line across, and they each have a gray border on the right side. Now, on the last one, I did not want a border on the right side, so therefore I put section last of type to border none. This way it's the last one of a section. It does not have a border. The image I set to a width of 95%, and I did text align to keep it center. I set my font size in my H2. I used the margin bottom to keep it from being directly on top of each other, and I put a font weight of bold to make it look and stand out more. For H4, I set the color. I put a font size of 1.3 EMs. My font weight is also bold. It's floated left. It's clearing left so that nothing is on the left side. And the margin is set to 3% on top and bottom and nothing on the left and right. I set the line height of each paragraph to 1.5 ems, and the width of each paragraph is 95%. However, in the history, which is the middle section, I have a width of 50% for each paragraph, and it floats left, and the margins are 3% on top, 0% on the right side and on the bottom, and 8% on the left side. My unordered list, I set the, excuse me, I didn't realize forgot to take that out. I set to an image of a bullet that I put in my image folder. I set the color of the text, font size, the font weight to bold, and the margin for the top at 4%. This is so that it has the spacing in between. And for the list items, there's a line height of 2.9 ems. This is to give it the space so that it's easily read. For my next component, I had the CTA. This was a pretty simple CTA. Again, I sent the font family to Arial and sans serif, and the background to the component image that we were given, and that was all in the body tag. The section tag, again, is the container. It has a position of absolute because I will be changing the position of another tag later on. The background image is set to the CTA background that was given. In my example, I put no repeat, and its center area, it's positioned in at the top and in the center of the section. The size is 98% wide. This is so it doesn't have a scrolling. The height is set just so that we are able to have the entire image shown. Without that, only part of the image would be shown. The overflow is set to auto. This is to make sure that even if there was more information, that it would be able to be seen and the background image would contain it all. I set the box sizing to border box yet again so that it would stay at the whole section would stay at 97%. The padding is at 1% and there was a 1% margin. My H2 tag is set at 50% width. This is because I had to reposition it, and that will be discussed later. My font size is at 7 This is to give it the bold look. The font family is Cantrell, which is linked in the component index page. And a sans serif text is as a backup. The color is white. The position is relative because it's relative to the section. That it is set at a top of 36% and a left at 36%. Now the H4 is also positioned at a different position as it is in the H2. The width is also 50% because of the positioning. The font size is set to 1.4 The color of the text is white, and the font weight is bold to give it a better look and bring more attention to it. Finally, the link that is there, the anchor tag, has a width of 50% because of positioning yet again, has a padding of 1% to give it the button look, a border of 1.5 pixels solid and white, and the color of the text is also white. My footer, I have the background image as component. The footer text is white. The main text is white. I have border box property again with a width of 96%, a padding of 1, margin of 3% on top and bottom, and auto to center it. The background image is the footer background image. I used Photoshop to take the text off and use just the image. I have no repeat top and center yet again. The size is set to 98% to keep from scrolling. Overflow is set to auto, and font family is Arial and sans serif. I use the before tag for the H3. This is to put content before it. This is how I got the cube to go above the Good Bites text. I had to use the position to center it above Good Bites. After that, I was able to set the width of the Good Bites text to 50% yet again for positioning. Font family is Arial sans serif, and the font size is 1.2 I had to move it using the position relative to center it where it is. Now the paragraph directly under the H3, that is why I use the H3 plus P. I have a font size of 1.2 I use the text transform to send it to uppercase. This way it's not, the CSS is doing the uppercase part of it and not me typing it. The position is set to relative. This is to move it up so it's not too far down, or so it moves it down so it's not right up against or underneath the Good Bites text. I have it text the line center to keep it centered. The line height is 0.75 and the color is set as well here to that gray color. The image is set to a 1.5, this is the heart, it's set to a 1.5% width. This is so that it's a scaled down version. Position is relative, and I had to move it down 8 pixels to have it set where it needs to be. The two sections each have a width of 30%. They float left, so they're next to each other. They have a margin and top and bottom margin of 5% and a left and right margin of 2%, and have the color, the gray color, as their text color. Now I use the H4 and the section last of type. I use the last of type because of the two different sections. This one will get the second one instead of the first one, or instead of both of them. and I did the text transfer uppercase here as well, because all the text in these two sections, or these two tags, will be uppercase. The H4 has a font size of 1.5 ems. Bottom margin is 4%. This is so that the text is not bumping up against each other, and the color of each header is white. The paragraph text has a font size of 1.3 ems, a line height of also 1.3 ems, and a bottom margin of 2%. I chose the line height of 1.3 ems. This way it's easier to read and not bumping right up against each other and blending together. And the whole reason I tried to stay away from classes and IDs as much as possible, so that I am able to create these without having too much stuff to keep up to date with. This is much easier to maintain than it would be with multiple IDs and classes. Each list item on my footer is displayed in an inline block. That means it's right next to each other. Each one has a width of 10%. It means it's 10%. Each list item is 10% the width of the unordered list. And the text is aligned centrally. That way it looks evenly across and not here in like big spaces in between. Finally, the image inside the list item. That is why I have list LIIMG. Each one is set with a width of 80%. This way the image inside is scaled down so that it looks correct. My gallery was pretty simple. Once again, each of my components have the body background image sent to the component image. My article has border box sizing again with a width of 70%, background color of white. I have the text aligned center so that it centers the image. The margin is 2% on top and bottom, and auto to center it. Overflow is also set at auto to keep everything within the background, and the padding is set to 1%. This is all, the padding and the width are all calculated in that border box. My article image, those are the arrows. Or no, that is the main image. Sorry. That has a bottom margin of 2% to keep the section or the slider, what looks to be the slider, separate, and it keeps it from bumping right up against each other. The section with the slider in it is set to a margin of auto to keep it in the center. It also has a border box, and the width is set to 53% with a padding of 1%. The text is aligned to center just to help keep everything in the middle. Next, each of the links or each of the image or the links are the arrows. Each are floating left and have a margin of 4.5% top and bottom. This is to help keep the arrows centered in between in the images, and it has a 1% on either left or right to keep the spacing. Each list item floats left. It's also displayed in an inline block so that it is going side to side instead of up and down, and each has a 1% margin left and right to keep the spacing as well.